This is the first in a series of tutorials about how to use HTML and CSS to build a website. It includes the Bootstrap front-end framework. The goal is to get you from beginner to proficient intermediate level. We're going to be building a working blog application. So we'll start out by creating a project. First, let's make a Hello World application, and that's just a simple website that says Hello World. Start by creating a folder. We'll call it blog site and drag it into Visual Studio Code or whatever text editor you prefer to use. And we'll create one page here called index.html. And Visual Studio Code has a snippet. You just type in the exclamation mark and a tab, and it will fill out the skeleton of a website. And in order to print out Hello World, we'll just add a tag called H1. That's going to be a heading tag, and just say Hello World. Save it. If you have Live Server installed as a plugin in Visual Studio, which is recommended, just right-click on the page and click on Open with Live Server, and we'll just open the page and print out Hello World. So we have a working website. Now let's briefly go over some definitions around HTML. HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language. The hypertext part refers to links within a website as well as links to other websites across the internet. Markup refers to the annotation of text and images and other content for display on a web page. HTML5 is the fifth and latest generation of HTML. It was officially released in 2014, although most browsers have been using it since 2012. A web page, the markup, consists of a whole bunch of different elements. An element is everything from the start tag to the end tag. So if we look at the Hello World site we created, we put that within H1 tags, which are the top level heading tags. This whole thing is an element. This is an opening tag, this H1, and the closing tag starts with a /, and within the tags is the content. Now, a few style rules. HTML is indented for clarity. Doesn't have to be, but it's easier to read. And generally, you will indent it 2 spaces. Comments, if you're using Visual Studio Code, just hit Command /. It will comment out whatever you selected. Hit that combination again and it'll uncomment. If it's commented out, then the browser will ignore it. So I've added some examples of elements below here, commented out. Let's uncomment that. Elements also contain attributes. Attributes are information about an element. They're put within the opening tag and they consist of name-value pairs. In this case, the name is ID and the value is P1. The value is put in quotes. You can use either single or double quotes. Style guides recommend double quotes. Some of the attributes that can be used in all elements include the ID tag, which is a unique identifier to that element. Class and style, which we'll talk about shortly, are attributes that add style. There's also a data attribute that can be applied to any element. That is fully customizable. So it has to start with data and a dash, and then you can put whatever name following that you want for whatever purpose you want. It's not used that commonly, but it is used sometimes. So in this example, we created an attribute called data-article-category and set it to tech. Now, elements are generally nested within other elements. For instance, this form element contains an input element and a submit button element. And all these tags are within the body element. There's some attributes that don't have a value, and that's because they're Boolean attributes, meaning the value is either true or false. If the name is there, then it's automatically set to true. If it's not there, then it's automatically false. Just by the fact that required is in this input element, it's set to true, and autofocus is also set to true. And the last attribute we'll talk about briefly here is the on-event attribute. So the event can be a click, or it can be a mouse over or a mouse out. there are specific events. This link would take you to all the events. But in this case, when this button element is clicked, then there's going to be an alert that says form submitted. So let's save this and go to the HTML page with these added elements. And you can see we've got hello world up here. We've got a couple paragraph elements here. You'll notice that this style attribute caused this to be centered. Here's the horizontal rule, horizontal line. Then we got the form elements, which consist of an input. So let's just input something, XYZ, and click the submit button. Because we clicked it, the on-click event was triggered and it says form submitted. Now let's take a look at the page structure without the general content. So if we take this stuff back out again, what do these things mean? Doc type HTML just tells the browser that this is an HTML5 web page. If it's an extremely old browser, it will be interpreted as HTML4. The HTML tag just indicates that everything within it is going to be HTML. This language attribute just tells the browser that everything is going to be in English. The head element contains metadata about the site that is not displayed directly in the browser. The first thing is a character set, UTF-8. That tells the browser to use UTF-8 as a character encoding. That is the de facto standard for the web and is able to display characters for a multitude of languages consistently. The browser's viewport is the area of the window in which the web content can be seen. This attribute is useful for mobile browsers. The title is displayed in the tab of the web browser. Let's change this to blog site and save it. And you can see the title up here, blog site. Let's add some more metadata. It's a good idea to add a description. This gets displayed in search engines. The first 158 characters will show as a little snippet in a Google search result. You can have a description of what your blog site is about, and you may even have different descriptions for each article. The next meta element for author is optional. For a blog site, it might be useful to put your name there. Now let's create the file structure for a project. Right now we have a project folder called blog site, and it contains one file called index.html. Let's add a few folders here. First one called images to hold our image files. Second one called style sheets to hold our style sheet files. And third, a folder called articles to hold our article files. Now let's add files to these folders. Inside articles, we'll add a document called article template.html. Inside our style sheets folder, we'll add a file called styles.css. And right next to the index.html file, we'll add a file called sampleform.html. Okay, our file structure is set up. Now let's create the layout for each of our pages. The way this blog site will be set up is the home page, index.html page, is going to highlight a few articles, and then it's going to list your other articles and have links to those articles. It's also going to have an about section where you can explain about yourself or your company or the focus of your blogs, something like that. Now let's go over the layout of our actual web pages. We'll start with the index page. HTML has a number of what's called semantic elements, where the element name gives an idea of what the content is supposed to contain. So I've created a number of these here for our index page layout. To uncomment them in Visual Studio Code, hit Command or Control /. Now we don't need this hello world anymore, so let's get rid of that. So a typical web page will have a navigation bar at the top, and you use the nav tag for that. And that'll have links to different sections of your website. And at the bottom, It can have a footer, and you can put links to your social media or your copyright for your site there or something like that, and that would go in a footer tag. And the main section of your web page would go in these main tags. Now, our site is focused on blogs, so it's going to have a number of articles, which is quite convenient. The article tag is for a block of content that makes sense on its own. In our homepage, we're going to list all of our articles and have a little bit about them and a link to those pages. So we'll conveniently put those in article elements. The aside element is for a portion of the document whose content is only indirectly related to the document's main content, and they're frequently structured as a sidebar. So we're going to have an about section of our web page. It's just going to have a little bit about you or your business or the focus of your blog content, something like that. There's also an address element where you can put your email address or physical address or phone number or something like that. So this is our basic skeleton structure of our home page. Let's save it and let's view it. Let's start live server. And there we go. It's not styled at all, so we'll get to that next, but it's got all the basic elements that we talked about. Now let's create the layout for the article template page. I've actually already created it, so let's just go over how it's structured. So similar to the other page, we've got the head element at the top with the metadata, and it will have links to our CSS, but we don't have any yet. Then within the page, within the body elements, we've got the navigation bar at the top and the footer at the bottom. And this whole page is going to be one article, so conveniently, we can put the whole content within the article tag. Now, we didn't use the header in the other page. We're going to use it here. A header contains introductory content or navigational aids. It may include a navigation bar, company logo, or page heading. Some people like to put the nav bar within the header. Others like to leave it out. I prefer to leave it out. It's up to you. The main section is going to be the meat of our article, the content of it, and we're going to have heading tags. So an H1 heading is going to be the highest level. That's going to contain our article title. Then we've got the next level down, an H2 heading, which is a topic within our article. A subtopic, one level down, is an H3, and a subtopic would be a level 4 down to level 6. P is for paragraphs. There's also a figure tag where we can place an image and also a caption. And in this page, we're going to have an optional nav bar along the side. It's going to contain a table of contents with links to different sections of our article. Let's go take a look at what this looks like. Instead of index, we'll type in articles, article template.html. And there's our layout without any styling yet, with our navigation bar, the header element that contains the article title, author, date, and then our topics, and here's our image, and our sidebar that contains the table of contents, and the footer at the bottom. Obviously, it's going to look a lot better when we add CSS. And that wraps up this subject.